Hey guys, welcome back. BDCKR here. We're back with our weekly recap of all things. No, we're not. We're back with our weekly Q&A video. Sorry, I was in a little bit of a pattern. This is season 11, episode 18. This is sort of the season of lost challenges.
Lost challenge characters.
Lost challenge characters, which are quickly becoming unlost as they're reintroduced into the game. And,
I wouldn't say, quick. I guess it's relative quickly. We've had 2 of them so far. Mm-hmm. Which is 2 more than we've had in the last 4 years.
I'm choosing to be hopeful.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyways. This week we are, I guess this is a podcast. You could be listening to this on a podcasting platform right now. Or you could be on YouTube, which just statistically you are. That would be BDCKR Gaming on YouTube. And if you're on YouTube, links in the description to different podcasting platforms. Right. Who are we looking at today if you are in fact on the video?
So we're looking at Elseworld Flash. His passive is Bullet Time. Once per match, when Flash reaches 30% health, his opponent's specials are disabled and time slows for 7 seconds. Mm-hmm. He's got 750 attack, 750 health. And he's got, if not the lowest stats, he's got among the lowest stats of any challenge character. And that's where I think he gets a little bit of his bad rap.
Yeah.
You know what? Actually, if you're watching the video, you're watching with Containment Doomsday. Containment Doomsday is probably the lowest stats. He's only got 700 attack and 600 health.
Yeah.
But his passive boosts the amount of health that he's actually working with. Mm-hmm. So I don't know that he counts the same way.
Because he gets damage buff and health buff and all that other stuff. So his base stats are low, but functionally he makes it up and more than makes up for it.
So, all right. So not only is he among the lowest stats, but he's among the slowest of the Flash skins. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's saying a little bit of something because we've always liked the Flash characters because they are just so good on the basics. They're fast in the rhythm of the basics. They're fast in how quickly they can start another combo.
Yeah.
The problem is in the way we're doing these challenge characters that have been lost, we're trying to show them and highlight them as the star on the team. And in this world, in this current meta for the game, being the star means doing a lot of specials. Well, all right, so here's the problem. And you're going to see a few examples of this in the gameplay right now. Elseworld Flash has a very short range for a special one. Mm-hmm. Opponent has to be real close. Guess what? He has to be really close for special 2 too, because that's short range also. So it becomes really hard to use him as a special because when you're using Master's Death card, right? Generally the best combination for a specialist in terms of gear is to have 10-2 on Master's Death card. But you can see some fights here where you're having the problem. With Master's Death card, shoving the opponent back, you cannot immediately launch a special 1 or special 2 unless you want most of the hits or all of the hits to miss. Even if you have power, you do it right away, opponent gets shoved out of range, which is awful. Like, it makes it really hard. I mean, you could potentially, you tag in and do what you do with other characters. You can do special combo, you do basic combo. But if the opponent has power, which happens a lot, it's not a great option. It's hard to get an opportunity to land a special unblocked after doing that basic combo, because as the opponent is pushed back, they are just as likely or more likely to do their special first. Mm-hmm. Instead of you try to time it to do the special when they're not blocking. So either you get hit as you're waiting for the opening, or if you go too early, they block it. And even if you try to do a tap combo and ignore the signal for the combo ender in order to start your special, the opponent will more often than not block.
Yeah.
So it's not for every time, because like I said, with the opponent doesn't have power, you can go ahead and do your basic combo and then time it right and get your special unblocked, but a lot of times you're stuck. But despite all this, he actually works pretty well as a basic damage dealer. So if you'll see this in some of the fights where we're sort of eschewing the specials and just doing a bunch of swipe combos. His swipe combos have a good rhythm. So even if it's harder or not possible to do an infinite combo like with Reverse Flash, where even if they have power, you can keep on doing a basic combo over and over and over, ad infinitum until they're knocked out. You can still do a lot of basics. And then when they build up enough power, they can sometimes have low enough health that instead of doing your a last basic combo ender, you do a special one, and take your character into the next opponent.
Mm-hmm.
And when he's geared right, he's able to do ultimates in a reasonable amount of time, even if you're doing him as a basic damage dealer, which is, I know it's passe, still, in this weird way, Elseworld Flash still works.
Yeah.
I do want to point out something that I think doesn't get people, when people crap on Elseworld Flash and how bad he is. This is one thing that I don't think gets pointed out. Elseworld Flash is one of the characters who has been nerfed. So if you look at his passive, once per match, 30% health, it's not the greatest style. One thing happens once in a fight, and it requires his health to be low. And it says the opponent specials are disabled and time slows for 7 seconds. The biggest thing is that the opponent's slowed for 7 seconds, where if you see it triggered, he can make the opponent basically dance like the worm.
Mm-hmm.
Where he can just do a swipe combo, don't wait for him to get up, the opponent to get up, and just keep on doing it over and over again, and they just get knocked down and knocked down. I think you can do enough to generate at least 1 bar, maybe 1.5 bars of power, so that you can do a decent amount of damage just because his passive triggers. But in the with the original introduction of Elseworld Flash, the passive would be able to interrupt an opponent's special if any of the opponent's hits put Flash's health in that sweet spot of somewhere between 0 and 30%. Mm-hmm. And you can see tons of examples of this in our first few seasons when we used Elseworld Flash in every one of our Q&A videos, because it was so easy to do that kind of grinding, basic attack grinding, live while we were just talking about other stuff. And back then, a team centered around basics was great for grinding, because without Tantu Totem and without Master's Death card, you weren't getting to specials so quickly, and trying to finish the other team with specials was not really that fast.
Yeah, it was sort of naturally balanced out.
Right. So now they've nerfed it by the opponent's special will always complete before Flash's passive will trigger. So that means in the old days where the opponent would have multiple hit specials, you could freeze them in the middle of their special. You can't do that anymore. Mm-hmm. Team you're watching is a variation of the original team that we used to do all the time. We used to call the BDCKR special. It has Containment Doomsday, but we've switched out Regime Green Lantern and replaced him with Hawkgirl. And I mean, I'm playing around with this like now because we're just so used to using Hawkgirl Rebirth Raven. But I think we could probably have done just as well with Regime Green Lantern again, even though the amount of battle points you get is less. And you probably noticed that we've also boosted everybody Containment Doomsday and Elseworld Flash to Elite 8, just to get a bit more battle points. Mm-hmm. But this team doesn't really require the same kind of tag-up control the other teams do. Containment Doomsday does a pretty good job of handling, being a meat shield and handling all the supers, right, by reviving. And when we've got Elseworld Flash relying on basics instead of specials, he's spending a lot of time anyways. Chances are, by the time we want to take him out, he's been there long enough that it's not a problem.
Yeah.
I still love Elseworld Flash. I think this would be... Elseworld Flash and Containment Doomsday both are highly underrated characters, and they would benefit the most from attack, maybe some health augmentations, and definitely still a lot of fun to play. I'm biased a little bit. I think I like all the Flash skins.
Yeah, I think what's important is that, the stats don't need to be high. These are interesting characters that are fun to play. And the fact that they're not sort of the most optimized is really besides the point. And this is more of sort of our general principle of, there's something to be said for just trying to have the most fun. And sometimes that's grinding really fast. And sometimes it's just playing with characters that are fun and interesting and you like sort of the feel of more than anything else.
Yeah.
So to start, we have a comment from... a patron, Hoshi127.
It was through our Patreon.
And because it's through our Patreon message, we also have a screenshot that we are able to read out that he appended to this. And so this is
we don't know.
Oh, sorry, they. Yeah, that's true. This is in response to recently the fact that the challenge was delayed by a few hours.
Yeah.
And because that's such an unusual event, people were concerned.
Oh, that's spoiler.
Well, that's true. So Hoshi says, "Hey guys, I feel bad bothering you, but I had an interesting interaction with WB support this morning because the challenge was late. Excuse my typo on the first email. I meant to say challenge has become core to the gameplay. Is it common for the challenge to start hours late like that? The subreddit was totally in a panic. Thanks, have a great week." And then they've posted a screenshot of an email exchange back and forth. And so Hoshi says, "The challenge mode on Injustice Gods Among Us has been on a cycle for about 4 years. Recently, it's changed to include a previously near impossible to obtain character, Gaslight Batman. The community rejoiced. To many of our dismay on the subreddit, no challenges started this week. We haven't been without this mode for years, and it has become to the gameplay," and he meant to say has become core to the gameplay. Please, please, please help." And then a little heart emoticon. And WB Game Support replies, "Greetings. I'm not going to say the name of either the Hoshi or the person replying, just in case, that's private information, although I think the support is probably okay to include. They say, "My name here, and thank you for reaching out to WB Game Support. I understand that you are experiencing issues with the challenge mode in Injustice Gods Among Us Mobile. Could you please confirm if you are experiencing the same issue? I'm looking forward to your response." And then best their name.
Yeah.
And so, the question here was, is it common for the challenge to start hours late like that? And I think it's decidedly not common.
Super uncommon.
Yeah, and so it makes sense why people on the subreddit were potentially concerned because, especially when the standard is nothing changing, everything being almost perfectly predictable.
Yeah.
Whenever something happens that's unusual, it's a sign of something, right?
Historically, whenever it's happened, something has happened. Something big, something different, something unexpected.
Yeah.
And I think it was...
Big being a relative term here.
Yeah. So I think it was totally legitimate for people to be panicked because it's typically a sign that somebody is doing something that's not on autopilot. Right?
Yeah.
So they've gone in and done something. I was very hopeful that it would be something new. I mean, we knew it was going to be something different because the pack that was in the store. But I also understand why people were in a panic because I think there has been some precedent with the stable of games. I think it was WWE Immortals that this stuff was just changing before they stopped supporting it, and I think they dropped the ability to play online.
Yeah.
So I feel like, though, that Injustice, even if it doesn't have the same kind of support or the revenue generating ability of some of the newer games, that it's too much sort of a flagship title for Warner Brothers, right? With these DC characters and stuff, for them to not at least give us a little bit of warning when something big and bad is going to happen, like they're going to stop supporting the game.
Yeah, so hopefully, we'd have a little bit more warning, and thankfully in this case, it's not like the challenge is gone, right? It's it's indicative of them having done something on the back end, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't look like anything bad, and it seems like it's just a little bit part of that larger sort of pattern of they're swapping stuff up at least a little bit right now.
And you pointed out something before we started, and I just realized I've realized how I'm figuring out what the support person said. They said, not great English. "Could you please confirm if you were experiencing the same issue?" You know what that they were probably saying? Are you still experiencing the issue? Because the response came about 5 hours after the original question, and by then the challenge had showed up.
That makes sense, yeah.
And I wonder if maybe they'd been just taking care of it, or that by the time they got it. That's interesting too, though. I guess that they've got other responsibilities. I wonder how connected the person who's doing support for Injustice, or just, I guess it wouldn't be Injustice specifically, it would be for all the Warner Brother games, how connected they are to the developers, and whether they would have asked to say, "Hey, is the game working now?"
Yeah, it's hard to say. You have to imagine that there's not a dedicated sort of staff just working for tech support for Injustice Mobile, right?
I'd like to believe otherwise.
Just based off of
I'd like
volume.
to hope otherwise, I guess.
But anyways, it is interesting, yeah. So at that point, they were probably just saying, like, is this fixed, essentially?
Right.
But it was a little bit of a way of phrasing it where I wasn't exactly sure what they were asking when I first read it. Yeah. Anyways, moving on, we promised that we would talk at least a little bit about sort of tier listing, right? We're not doing a full tier list in this video, although, it's possible that we do that one day, just because it's content. But we had people comment, and we asked them about what they thought specifically was S rank for them.
Right.
And so we're going to talk about it. We're going to go through that, and then we're going to share maybe not an exhaustive list of S rank characters for us, but we're going to at least talk about people that we do think belong in S rank.
Right.
So Nathan Hayward 7162 is the first commenter. They say 100% agree that Hawkgirl Prime is S tier and the best support in the game. A close second and third is the Batman Who Laughs and Regime Green Lantern. Do you think we should read out the whole stuff, or do you want to sort of go point by point and see how you feel about other people's opinions?
I want to just
talk about it a little
as we go, because I think I'm going to lose track of stuff as we go too far.
Okay.
I agree. Hawkgirl Prime is S tier. I think what's interesting to me is I'm sort of involved. I check out the Injustice mobile subreddit every once in a while.
Yeah.
And I remember maybe in the last couple of years, people would do their tier rankings. And Hawkgirl used to be neglected. Like, she would not be included in a lot of people's top tier.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me that I wonder if it's because of the audience and the number of times that we've actually come out and explicitly said, hey, Hawkgirl, S tier, all the way. Like, there's no way that you can't, for how much the game relies on Tentu Totem. I mean, that's the rationale, right?
Yeah.
When a game has a mechanic that is the most important part of making your teams powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is only one character that can take this one mechanic
and make it like more than twice as effective.
Right. It just makes
it not more than twice as effective overall,
more powerful,
but like, yeah.
It gives you more control over how you can take advantage and use this mechanic.
Yeah.
I think you'd be missing out on a huge amount of the, I guess, the technique, the ability, or just I don't know what word I'm looking for. But you'd be missing out on a lot of the gameplay if you didn't take advantage of it. You'd be neglecting a huge advantage that you could have. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm not convinced about Batman Who Laughs and Regime Green Lantern. I've played with both of them. Regime Green Lantern, I'll say, is probably the highest. If there's going to be sort of a high tier for silver characters, I would say Regime Green Lantern is there. Because
so S tier silver then. But are we separating by the sort of category? Because, you know, if you sort of like arrange people from A tier to F tier, right?
Yeah.
Or S plus to F tier, right?
Yeah.
Then silver characters are almost always going to all be under most gold characters, right? And bronze characters are going to be under that. So I think you kind of have to think about it as each being their own category. And in that case, you are saying that he is like S tier silver.
He's the best silver possible. I mean, he's one of the few silvers that I would put on a team with golds.
Yeah.
I'm trying to come up with another one. I'm not sure I could. Maybe Flash, Regime. Is it Regime Flash? It's the silver one. That we've done that before, where we speed up Reverse Flash in order to help him with the infinite combos. Yeah. But I don't think there's the same kind of broad utility that Regime Green Lantern has.
Yeah.
Again, Batman Who Laughs, it's a metal character. I think out of all the metal characters, he's not even the best. Like, so I wouldn't say he's among the best characters overall when he's not among the best metals. Mm-hmm. I would rank Batman Ninja Catwoman as the top metal, maybe with New 52 Shazam, but not Batman Who Laughs. Yeah.
And so I think, you know, what would be interesting about this list, right, is it's hard to tell. The information that we don't have is what gear and resources the person we're talking to has access to, right? So very well, Batman Who Laughs, Regime Green Lantern, and Hawkgirl Prime might be the three best characters on this person's account, right? But I would be interested to know if this person has like a fully maxed out account. Right. Maybe that would have been the extra piece of information to ask people, is like sort of how much stuff do you have, right? Yeah. Do you have everything? Do you have like half of stuff? Because that also makes the math a little bit different. And I think, you know, what we don't want to say here is that anybody is wrong, right? We all just have different sort of opinions.
I thought we were going to say people
were... we can, if we want to, we can make this sort of big jokey statement of this is objective, this is right, and everybody else who has a different opinion is wrong and doesn't make any sense. But I think what's important here is that everybody's coming from a different place, right? And the thing that we say over and over again, right, when people talk about a tier list is no one character is like objectively better, because it all matters like how you play it, right? The tap games that you're good at, the rhythms that make sense to you, all that stuff ends up mattering so much that, you know, there can't be an objective answer. So, you know, we might not agree with people, but it's interesting. And I think the thing that I'm saying here is that if somebody is coming in and messaging and commenting and letting us know what they think, it's nice and I enjoy trying to understand why, right? Where the disconnect between, because we don't really, you know, we don't think the Batman Who Laughs is bad, but we don't think it's as good, right? It would be interesting to tease apart why this person has such a difference in an opinion to us, right? Anyways, that's Captain Hayes 1374. Or no, sorry. Nathan Hayward 7162. Next is Captain Hayes 1374. They say, below is my S tier. I didn't include any characters that rely on specific teammates, for example, Flashpoint, Aquaman, or Deathstroke, but I did include characters that have an in-universe synergies that are strong on their own in addition to what they can offer the team.
I guess before we get into the list, I'm gonna say I disagree with that. I think characters that rely on specific teammates, and if they have those teammates, they become better than the teammates. I think absolutely they belong. So we
have a difference in methodology.
Yeah, well, yeah, and this is the thing. The interesting thing about it is the methodology is part of your opinion. Like we're sort of deciding how you judge it, because the old way that people used to judge, not the old way, but just like a common way that people judged, was that they would look at characters on an individual basis, in isolation, on their own. So that Arkham Knight Batman and Injustice 2 Superman, who are, I think, objectively probably the two most powerful individual characters. If you're doing fights 1-on-1 or 1-on-3 or 1-on whatever, and you had nobody else, I think they're probably the best characters, because you don't get the advantage of the kind of synergies and support that you can get from the really good characters like Hawkgirl Prime.
Yeah, I think the real sort of like, if you wanted to make what you felt was closest to like an objective mathematical, like we were just joking that you can't do, tier list, you would have to find a sort of weighting system of valuing versatility of like role, and also versatility within other teams, right? Where the characters, you would get bonus points if you could drop them in to basically any team with basically any gear, and you would have to sort of make provisions, and they would lose some sort of value, right? If they needed specific gear, specific teams, the more things that needed to be specific on your sort of side in terms of resources and stuff that you might not have, the sort of lower they would go in the ranking. But I think we are sort of imagining a tier list where they are in their ideal situation, they're in their best form, and you don't have any limitations on who you pair them with or what gear you have on them, and they get sort of rated for their contribution to the team. For at least their share, right?
I mean, and I guess the biggest shortcoming of that became obvious to me when people would argue, well, if they need this specific teammate or they need this specific gear, they can't be the best. And I think, well, but you never do that in isolation. This is it, right? Like, you very rarely are you fighting less than 3-on-3.
Yeah.
Very rarely are you going to decide, well, if I got this gear, I'm just not going to use it. So I think a lot of this is aspirational, right? Like, sometimes people are talking about characters they don't have. I mean, we're not. We've got all the characters. We've had a chance to play with all of them. We've got all the gears that we can use. And I think it is, you're missing something. Again, this is, you're not taking advantage of an opportunity if you are thinking of a team that without these things you don't like as much, but when you have them, why would you use anybody else? If this is the team that you've got access to, like, I think in my mind, Flashpoint Deathstroke on a team with Flashpoint Batman is the best Flashpoint character. So, sure, he's not nearly as good without Flashpoint Batman, but when they're both on the same team, he's better. Like, he does more damage. He does more on his combo ender, so he does more basic damage if you want his basic damage dealer. He does more specials damage because he has the pirate crew. And the boost that Flashpoint Batman gives is the boosted crit damage. I just don't see how it's useful to talk about it in a way where you ignore that, if you've got Flashpoint Deathstroke, it's a priority to have him if you have the ability to put him on this team in this way.
Yeah, but I really appreciate, even though we have that disagreement about methodology, I really appreciate that Captain Hayes has written that here very clearly.
To be clear, yeah.
Because that way, this is exactly what I was talking about with the last comment, where I understand, right? When I don't see Flashpoint Deathstroke on this list, I understand why, right? So anyways, moving on to the list. S tier characters, Arkham Knight Batgirl. They say team saves for Arkham teammates and easy access to stun boosted damage.
100%, right? So Arkham Knight Batgirl has the advantage of being a Batgirl, just having the mechanics of her special one. Now, it's not as good as Batgirl Prime, where there's 2-hit stun, and then boom, where stun boosted damage can really be a nuke. Because Arkham Knight Batgirl's follow-up hits after the stun is a bunch of hits. However, that ability to automatically stun twice in a fight when the Arkham teammate is about to get knocked out but doesn't get knocked out. So you've got an automatic stun. And we've seen how, even if you don't rely on the stun boosted special one, her basic combo, if you stun boost it, is amazing. A lot of times, it's going to be enough against an opponent that does not have any vulnerabilities to knock out the opponent if you gear her properly. Yeah, absolutely. Any Arkham team that does not have Arkham Knight Batgirl is totally missing.
For sure.
So I completely agree.
Next up, Arkham Knight Batman. And this is points for role flexibility and effective in many roles, which is exactly what I was talking about a little bit earlier, right? Yeah. Where you get value from it being flexible, for being easy and good across contexts and situations.
And I'll say even more than that. It's not just flexibility and effective in many roles, but super powerful. I mean, the most important role, I think, for any character is damage output. If they can have damage output, if it's high enough, they're going to be effective on a team.
Yeah.
And Arkham Knight Batman is not only that, but he can do other things. He has the ability to start at the beginning of fight. On a technicality, it's not 3 bars, but he basically effectively starts with can start with 3 bars of power. Mm-hmm. So getting free power is always great, and he's got high stats. He is somebody that can really carry the team, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you drop him anywhere, he's going to be effective. But the reason why Batgirl is S tier is because on a team with Batgirl, you're basically getting the benefit of him twice.
Yeah. We also have Blackest Night Flash, which is damage over time reversal, monopoly on basic damage, and potential for tripled health.
I'm of two minds about this, right? Because the damage over time reversal, super powerful. It doesn't come into play nearly as often as it could.
Yeah, I think the real problem with that is that it's good on paper, but the number of times we like to talk about sort of like a noticeable difference in outcome for abilities. And when you think about the percentage of fights in which you turn a losing fight into a winning fight, or you significantly speed up a fight, or anything else, right? Where there's something that is a measurable, noticeable difference to you as a player. Yeah. The percentage of time that damage over time reversal gives you a noticeable change in outcome is almost never, right?
Yeah. So I'd put Blackest Night Flash like at the top of the A tier, but I feel like he's less to me than the ones we've talked about so far. I think Hawkgirl, Arkham Knight Batgirl, Arkham Knight Batman.
Yeah.
Maybe a hair below. Like, if you were going to fine tune the S tier and have people that were of different abilities on the S tier, but I feel like Blackest Night Flash is a little bit below that.
So he's top A tier for you, maybe bottom S tier, depending on sort of how crowded each tier was getting.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's the last guy you'd let into the club.
Yeah. He's not the third monkey on Noah's Ark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Next up, we have Flashpoint Batman. That is extreme crit damage boosting for specials and basic damage for Flashpoint characters.
Yeah, I mean, we sort of beat that horse for a bit already.
Yeah.
I think on a team with Flashpoint Batman and Flashpoint Deathstroke is the better player or character, but that ability to give any Flashpoint character the boosted crit damage, you can't beat that. I don't have an argument with that, even though I would, the same kind of stratification, I'd have Deathstroke a little bit higher, but he relies on Batman to give it to him, so I think it's totally fair.
Mm-hmm. We have Hawkgirl Prime, which is for tag in / tag out cooldown reduction, and we've obviously talked about that a lot already. We're in total agreement on that. Yeah. We also have Batgirl Prime, starting power for team and best Batgirl for special 1 nuke, and that's just talking about with the stun, right? Yeah. Dealing that huge amount of damage and splash damage.
I mean, that starting power, it's hard to ignore that. That is huge, despite her being such an old challenge character and having stats that are not really comparable, the ability to do the special one stun boosted damage makes up for her relatively low attack.
Yeah.
And giving starting power, when you think about it, all right, so look at it this way. There are characters who, when their health is low, old challenge characters, when their health is low, they generate more power. That sucks. There's characters like Arkham Regime's Bane that will give his teammates power and himself power, but only Arkham. So that's worse than Batgirl. And only when his health drops below a certain point, also worse. Because then you might miss out on the opportunity to give out power if any of his teammates is knocked out first.
Having the resources earlier is always better, right? Yeah. Not having to do anything to sort of activate something and get the value out of it is always better. And in this case, that one special, it's not hard for any character to generate 1 bar of power in the course of a fight. Yeah. Anybody can do it. Yeah. The value that gives you is having it always, instantly, is that it makes every fight faster, right? It makes every fight noticeably faster every time, which is super valuable in the long scheme of things. For a game that's about grinding, right? Yeah. Like if you save 5 seconds every fight, it adds up over time.
Right. It's not unlike money. Having $100 today is way better than having $100 2 years from now.
Yeah.
Like having it in hand, you have so many more possibilities. There's so much more potential that you can have. And if you just look at it from the point of, say, investing, I mean, it's the same kind of thing, right? Mm-hmm. That you have it in hand now, you can potentially have more later and be able to do more with it. And anyways, yeah, absolutely. I'm just repeating what you were saying.
Next up, we have Luchador Bane, easy access to unblockable special 1 nuke. What do you think about that? It's hard for me because Luchador Bane is good, objectively very good.
Yes.
And also part of like a strategy that can be really hard to face in both offensive and defensive, right? I think one thing that Luchador Bane gets that most people don't is that Luchador Bane can really take apart like a team when you've left it in as defense, right? Like if you're fighting a Luchador Bane and he pops in and stuns you, sometimes they can really mess you up and there's not a lot you can do about it. And I think you definitely get sort of points for that.
I'll tell you what though. All right, so years ago, before there's so many possibilities for revive, I would have had him right at the top, right?
Yeah.
His limitations are his health is low. But with the revives, he's lost a lot of his value as being somebody who can really rip right through a team. Mm-hmm. And what hurts his case, if I was going to make a case, like, so he's maybe not S tier. Maybe if you're going to argue that he's the bottom of the S tier, what hurts his case a little bit is that, and this shouldn't have an influence, but when I'm facing him, he's not a problem at all. You can manage him by making sure that whoever you've got that is your main damage dealer finishes one of Luchador Bane's teammates in a way that leaves them not vulnerable to attack.
Like mid-special.
Right. And that's one of the biggest problems with the newest challenge characters, where only this last hit of the special 2 can knock them out, because then you are vulnerable to Luchador Bane. But there's just too many ways to get around him, and it's too hard to effectively use him consistently, because there's chances are almost every fight you're going to be facing somebody with revive where the one hit special doesn't do enough.
And you make a good point. You can learn how to manage him better.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So not my S tier. My A tier for sure.
Yeah. We have Teen Titans Raven, and they say most efficient special 2 specialist.
So this is interesting too. So I will agree that I think she's probably got the best special 2 when you look at the number of hits, how it breaks down, the pauses. Maybe actually Injustice 2 Superman has the best special 2. But Teen Titans Raven has a really good one because of the synergy with her passive, where she gets to have a chance to steal health and steal power, so that after the special 2 is done, there's basically a random dice roll to decide if you steal the opponent's power and basically do another 25% damage and almost... if you haven't knocked them out already, almost assuredly knock them out if it's unblocked. Mm-hmm. So she probably comes closest to me on the basis of just her special 2. Mm-hmm. I'm not entirely convinced that that's enough, although you could probably make the argument that, like Arkham Knight Batman, like Injustice 2 Superman, they are just so good on their own that if you gear them right, you drop her on any team, that she's going to be able to do it.
Yeah.
I think the problem really becomes, how are you going to manage against a team, say like Gaslight Batman, if you're facing them? I think with Arkham Knight Batgirl, that's not a problem. Like all the advantages that you get with the other characters, you're not nearly as vulnerable. So I guess that's true with Lucia or Bane too, where if you're relying on her dropping in with 2 bars of power and doing special 2, but you know what? That's not a great argument now that I'm thinking about it, because this is, I mean, I wish I'd made some notes. I'm doing this off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I think she probably comes the closest, and there's something about her, I think, that feels to me, and I'm not sure I can articulate why, she's not nearly as fight changing as or as Arkham Knight Batgirl.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just really more that, you know, when you watch a movie and it does something really different, or you read a story and it just does something completely different compared to a story that is something that you used to, but they do it really well.
Yeah.
I like that kind of story too, but I feel like it's not really elevated the same way.
Yeah.
So
which one do you like?
I like stories that are that I know what to expect, and I know that it's not anything particularly special, but it gives it to me. Like, to me, my favorite romantic comedy is it's Bonnie Hunt and David Duchovny and Minnie Driver. What's it? Return to Me.
Yeah.
I can't really tell you anything about it without spoiling it, but to me, that's the example of like a lot of cliches, but done really well.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's movies that do something completely new that has never been done before, or just does something completely different.
I think sometimes it's easier when you have a direct comparison point, right? Where you can say, I know what to expect. I know what a mediocre and a bad and a good entry in this is, and I know that this is the best, right?
Yeah.
So there we go. That was Teen Titans Raven. And I will say right at the top here, we are probably going to finish this comment. We won't be able to get to, we have more comments. We'll do future weeks, but this is going to be, it would be like more than an hour. And I think just for
so
our
we've got
time
two
right
more
now,
big comments about the S tier. So maybe this is going to be
this will be a multi-part. Yeah. Next week we'll go through a couple more comments. And then no promises that we'll get to it next week. But then I think once we've gone through everything, we've talked about it, we've had back and forth, people have more time to get their answers in if they really want to.
Yeah.
Although we might not discuss them in as great detail, then we'll come back and sort of, you'll be able to piece it together with the agree or disagree, but we'll talk about sort of some of our favorites and with a focus on the ones that haven't been mentioned as much in this conversation, if there are any, by the time we're through everything. Okay. We also have Rebirth Raven, which is no cost special specialist and enemy special denial.
Hard agree with this. There's nothing I can disagree with here. That's why we use her on almost every multiplayer team. The fact that you can steal the power, even if you didn't get it for yourself, would be huge.
Yeah.
That defensive ability is huge, but you combine that with the fact that she gets it, and she is basically a secondary special specialist.
For sure.
That is super effective even when you're power dampened, because, hey, we just steal it.
Yeah. And you don't need specific sort of like power generating gear, right? Like it's easier to
avoid
turn her into a special specialist.
Yeah.
And
her special 2 is great.
Not step on the toes of whoever the other special specialist is on your team. You can have the gear that you want on both characters.
Right.
No compromise.
Yep. And I want to point out, though, that the mechanics of her special 2 are great. Multiple hits. It can cross different opponents. There's enough spacing and enough hits that you could potentially knock out 3 opponents if they're weak enough.
Mm-hmm.
I love her. I mean, you can see that every week. Rebirth Raven and Hawkgirl are clear S tiers for us.
And then the last S tier on their list is Justice League Wonder Woman, and that enables multiple Justice League special specialists on team.
What's funny about that is I think she is now called, when she was released as Justice League Wonder Woman, and maybe that belies the fact that this is an older player, but I think she's called New 52.
Or somebody who's been playing for longer, a more veteran player.
Yeah. But I totally agree. I think she gets the short end of the stick a lot of times when people make their tiers. I've seen people put her as like B or lower than A, and I think that really does her a disservice. The fact that she can leverage Tantu Totem and Master's Death Card and do exactly this, right? She can make a team of Justice League specialists.
Super valuable.
Yeah, the damage output from specials is so much better than with basics that anytime you can do more of this, I mean, this is the basis for or New 52 Wonder Woman plus Man of Steel Superman, because you're leveraging it once with her passive to give Superman, Man of Steel Superman, and then you're leveraging his passive again, potentially to do a bunch more free specials.
Yeah.
Spectacular.
Well, you have a full team of Justice League teammates. This Wonder Woman, essentially any power she gets is doubled. When you spend it, you get the same amount back on the other two characters. You get half each on the other two. So when you have a full team, if they're both Justice League, you essentially double your power.
Yeah, yeah.
Anything that you get on her, which is super valuable, right? That's
until somebody gets knocked out for sure. Yeah. You were absolutely right.
She's that is so good. The last of Captain Hayes' S tiers, and then maybe we'll just go quickly through the honorable mentions for completeness. And we don't need to talk about this as much because Captain Hayes is not saying these, unless we disagree and think any of these are S tier. We have Suicide Squad Harley Quinn, and the reason is Suicide Squad Joker Portrait Special 2 Specialist build, infinite power or health generation for team. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know the
high A tier.
I think high A tier. I think I agree with this. The infinite power or health generation isn't nearly as good because there's a pause after she finishes her special. There's that refractor period where you're vulnerable.
Yeah.
So I think the most effective use of her is with Suicide Squad Joker doing that big special 2 damage.
Yeah.
But she's close.
Agree, right? This is honorable mention. So what we're saying is that we agree.
Yeah.
We also have Gaslight Batman, immunity to tagging effects / Master's Death Card, and Bat Swarm makes opponents vulnerable.
Not enough for me. He just doesn't do enough.
So you don't even think it's an A tier?
I think he's an A tier. Sorry. Yeah, definitely A tier. A tier. Yeah, A tier, 100%.
Yeah. Injustice 2 Superman, controlled special immunity, and highest stats in game.
S tier. To me, Injustice 2 Superman is clearly S tier. What puts him over the top for me is how good his special 2 is.
Yeah.
3 hits, they are spaced out so that you get full value for each of the hits. You're not going to get ripped off where you're doing a bunch of hits on your special that whiff as the next person's tagging.
Yeah.
No, so he's S tier for me.
So there we go. And then we have Reverse Flash, special immunity without granting Tantu Totem refund, and infinite swipe combo.
I think he's been nerfed a little bit. In the old days, his special, the 3 times that he would get the, what do you call, cellular regeneration.
Yeah.
The first time he'd be pretty much guaranteed it, and he'd be half a chance on each one. It feels like a lot of times he's getting knocked out without triggering 2 of his cellular regenerations. So,
but the swipe combo, right? The tempo and the swipe combo being so good definitely does.
Yeah, you know what? I can live with that. I think high A tier.
High A tier, so we're in agreement there.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, we have Blackest Night Batman, 30% unblockable chance for basics and special for Blackest Night characters, damage boost based on opponent health.
Definitely, if we were looking at it from perspective of AI, I'd say definitely high A, maybe even S tier.
Yeah.
Because the unblockable chance is basically unblockable every time when you take account that the AI gets to finish their combo no matter what. Mm-hmm. I think when you're playing with him, that it's good, but not nearly as good.
So maybe like mid A.
I'd say A. He's solid. He's a solid.
He would be below honorable mentions for us, but he wouldn't be. Yeah. You know, he's not bad. We're sort of in a similar ranking with him.
Yeah.
Same letter category, and I think that's a good place to end it off this week because you know Caleb Whitaker has a much longer comment.
Right.
Not much longer than average, right? I don't know longer than this one necessarily.
Right.
But we want to give time to everybody who's taken the time to sort of share their thoughts with us.
And
so
put a lot of thinking into it. Spend some time to really articulate what matters to you.
So we'll spend longer on these, but they're worth talking about in a little bit more detail and giving them their proper time. Right. So we'll call that for here. Is it fair to say we'll do that next week? We
will try.
Yeah, we'll at least make part of it. If this is going on an even longer basis, we might have to sort of figure out what percentage of the episode we want to be that, right? Sure. Like 70% or whatever. Because sometimes we do like to ramble about non-injustice things too. So it's a very injustice episode.
Yeah.
But anyways, to finish up,
it was very an unjust episode.
All right.
Okay.
I know it's not funny enough for me to respond to, but it's also not funny.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to riff with you on that because it's just a bad pun, but I did like it. Okay. So to finish up, we'd like to give a huge thank you to our patrons on Patreon. That's a thank you. I started to say Michael. That's a thankful to Michael Devries. That's Irvin Ruiz, Hoshi127, Nora Klimek, and Paolo-Cesar-Pablo-Juan, who are supporting us on the credited level, as well as 5x5 supporting us on the gratitude level. Thank you so much for your support, and thanks so much to all of you for hanging out with us. If you sent in one of the comments that we talked about this week, thank you for, sharing your opinion with us. We look forward to talking about everybody else's opinions on tier lists in the future week.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next time.
Komoda.